Um, there we go. So you don't have to take a lot of notes. Take whatever ones you want. It'll be out on our website in a couple of days, so you can revisit it as many times as you want, and to pick up some of these things here. So basically, what I'm trying to do here is this isn't going to be a training session on reffing. It's going to be more of an orientation to officiating and kind of give you an idea of what you've signed up for and are going to kind of get into, and how this all, what all has to happen in order to get us out on the field. So some of this might be kind of boring, so I apologize for that, but I'm going to kind of do a hierarchy thing here. High school sports are guided and ruled by the National Federation of High Schools. They are the governing body. They develop the rules that come into our rule book. 49 states and the District of Columbia belong to the Federation, high school, the National Federation. They develop the rules for all sports, and that's what the different states go by. One state, the state of Texas, is not a member, and believe it or not, the state of Texas uses the college rule book for their high school games. But they're Texas, so they do what they want. But all the other states play by the same set of rules. They have an annual convention for football, and that's where they'll discuss rules. Any rule changes will be presented there. It's kind of like Congress. Each state has a representative. They go through subcommittees on rule changes, and the the whole body has to approve it. And if it doesn't get a majority vote, the rule doesn't come into play. So that's how rules happen. Officials, most people won't believe this, but officials do not develop the rules. We just interpret them and enforce them. There may be some former officials representing states, but it's the high school league is the group that sends a representative to that group. The federation develops the rule books. The high school league purchases them. Then you will get your rule book probably in the next couple of weeks. Should be by no later than the first week in August. If you don't get them, let me know and I'll follow up. The high school league would be next in that hierarchy, and they have their office in Brooklyn Center. It's a nonprofit organization that, believe it or not, they don't get any direct funding from the state. When I say direct, they get indirect funding because each school pays to be part of the high school league. So that's obviously state taxpayer money flowing through that way. But they don't get any direct revenue from the state. Their revenue is the fees from the schools, revenue from state tournaments. Some of those are televised. They get advertising money for that. And then also, obviously, we pay to be an official, and that's part of their revenue stream also. Their primary roles are developing the player eligibility rules and enforcing those. There's over 500 schools in the state that participate. There's 51 sports and activities, and high school leagues also in charge of I'll call them hopefully I don't offend anybody. They also get involved in non-athletic activities like debate, robotics, different activities, 3-act play, choir concerts. Those are all under the purview now in the schools under the activity directors. We used to know them as athletic directors. Now they're in charge of all the activities in the schools. So there's 51 sports and activities. That'll soon be 52. There's roughly 240,000 high school kids participating on an annual basis. And then the high school league does run the section and state tournaments for the different sports. So that's their role. They do not assign officials other than the state tournament. That's where the associations will come into play for assigning, regular season and section tournaments. The high school league does provide training. You'll get a packet from the high school league with your rule book. There's online training that'll start, supposed to start August 7th. to those of you that registered as a varsity official, you will get your rule books. There's online training. There's an online concussion course that all officials have to take. That's a state requirement. And that's once every 3 years, we have to do the refresher course to basically recognize potential concussion situations. And if we think there's an issue with a player or players, our role is to call timeout and bring the trained staff out, which is at a varsity game. There's a certified trainer at every varsity game, and at many non-varsity games. They're responsible to determine if a player has a concussion or not. At a lower level game, if there's not a certified trainer there, one of the coaches is certified, they'll determine if a player has a concussion or not and can come back into the game. We cannot prevent a player from coming back into a game. We can send it back out if we think they're kind of woozy and wobbly, but we cannot say that player's done for the day. The online training will help guide you through how to do that. And then there'll be some other training courses online, the online test. There is a test to take every year. It's an open book test. The potential test is 100 questions, but the high school league picks out 60. Most of those are true, false, and there might be 4 or 5 multiple choice, but you'll see that when you get your packets. And then next is in the hierarchy is our associations. Well, let me go one step before that. Why do we need officials? About 12 years ago or so, the high school league coined a phrase, without officials, it's just recess. And by that, they mean for a varsity contest for football, we have to have 5 officials there. In an emergency, we can go with 4, but we have to have certified, registered officials. And if they're not available, that varsity game, the contest cannot be conducted. So they need officials. And that's at all sports at the varsity level. They need them in gymnastics, swimming, debate judges, judges for choir contests, music, all the way through. And there's a big shortage. So if you know people that want to get interested in activities as well as sports, direct them to the high school league. So our role is to maintain the integrity of the game, meaning we enforce the rule book. I look at the rule book as three sections. The most important part is player safety. That's our #1 priority, that we enforce the safety rules, such as clipping, which is blocking below the waist from behind, targeting, leading with a helmet, grabbing a face mask, anything that's safety related, we have to be very diligent on those. The second most important part is kind of a 1A and 1B category is sportsmanship. And if you're watching a game, typically sportsmanship ends up with an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. Basketball, it's a technical foul. Hockey, it's a game misconduct type things. And sportsmanship are usually non-contact type situations. Taunting, excessive celebration, racial slurs, ethnic slurs, those types of things that are not illegal blocks, pass interference. It's things that they want the game to run smoothly with good sportsmanship. At the high school level, that's a big, big thing. As you get up the ladder to college and pro, sportsmanship is less of less important, at least as far as enforcement. High school is very diligent on that. And finally, and not least, is fair play, which means basically the rules, what you can do and what you cannot do. Easy ones to describe are pass interference, holding, offside, illegal motion. Those are the fair play things that the majority of the rule book, when you get it, will say, here's what you can do on passing plays. Here's what a legal formation is. Those are the other rules that we're enforcing. Now, your rule book better here. Will look basically like this, or this is a rule book. It's about 78 pages. This one is from the 2018 season. I keep mine for a few years. The high school league issues rule books every other year, but as new signees, if you will get a rule book. And I think this is the year that everybody gets them. But it consists of all the rules. Again, what you can do and what you cannot do, and that's what you'll be, book learning. Sorry, guys, got to get back into a book and do some learning. But and we'll talk about how to study towards the end of our session here. And again, my goal is to have us get done in about an hour. We can go longer if anybody wants to go longer. I'm definitely willing to do that. So that's primarily why we are there, is to allow these games to be conducted. We are I'll give you an example. 1988 Prep Bowl championship game was Blaine and Creighton-Durham Hall. And there was 2 seconds left on the clock, and Blaine scored a touchdown, and they were down by 1 point at that time. And they went for 2, and a quarterback keeper to a sweep to the sideline. He was ruled in the end zone, 2-point conversion. Blaine won the game by 1 point. A lot of controversy with that call as to whether it was that player got in the end zone or not. At that time, the game was televised, but they only had a few cameras, and they definitely did not have one on the goal line. Today, for the last 5 or 6 years, high school league, Minnesota's been on the forefront of using instant replay. I think they're one of the first states to do that, and I think they started in hockey, basketball, and football. We do have instant replay on a small scale. Not as much gets reviewed as in college and in pro. There's more cameras available to them, and so we have it. We didn't have that for that game. So it depends which team you're rooting for, was whether that call was correct or not. So fast forward 25 years. I happen to be watching the Prep Bowl on TV. It's televised every year. And during halftime of one of the games, they had the 2 head coaches from that game. Dave Nelson was at Blaine at that time, and I forget the gentleman's name at Creighton-Durham Hall right offhand. And they interviewed them independently. They weren't in the same room, and they still didn't agree on that call. Blaine thought they scored. Creighton said they definitely didn't score. There would not have been a trophy awarded to anybody without officials there to make the decision, right or wrong. That's why we're there to manage the game as best we can, make the calls that have to be made. Obviously, we hope to be right. In that case, a championship trophy was issued and a runner-up trophy was issued. Without officials there, they never would have been able to give a trophy, because they were not going to agree. And understandably so. They're tied into the game, but nobody had a good angle except for the official on the sideline. So that's why we're there. We are, as an officiating community, an aging group. As you can see, I got some gray hair in my head. And a lot of us out on the field, I'm not on the field anymore, but a lot of us are getting up in years. We need more and more officials coming in. This year, the last couple of years, we don't have enough officials statewide for football for everybody to play on Friday night. They want to play on Friday night. That's the desire for everybody. Understandable. If everybody played on Friday night in the metro area, we would not have enough officials that we feel qualified to work varsity games. So we've got Thursday night games and some Saturday games, and we're pushing the schools to do more of that till we can get our numbers back up. And Gopher State we'll get into Gopher here in a second, but we are getting older. We need more people coming in. Things happen in life. Some people get into a job that they can't do it anymore. They move out of town, things like that. So we need you guys coming up. And thank you again. I'll say that more than one time. Thank you for your interest. and getting involved, and hopefully we can keep you around for several years. So next on that org chart, so to speak, is our associations like Gopher State. There's 4 in the metro area, somewhat geographic. Gopher State is primarily west part of the metro, a little bit to the north. There's an association in St. Paul. There's one in Minneapolis, and then there's one in the south suburban area called Suburban Officials. So, like I said, the high school league does not assign officials for the regular season. Schools aren't staffed to do that either. They have way too much to do in their activities office to be recruiting officials, figuring out who they want to have work the games, assign the games, and all of that work. So our role as an association is we're providing the service to the schools. We line up with our associations line up with different schools. Right now, I signed varsity games for 48 schools and I think 44 for non-varsity. So that's my job in the fall. And basically, I work at it 10 months of the year, to be honest with you. But it's my role to get us officials like you to start working lower level games, put together our crews, and assign them based upon the games the schools give us. We have 21 varsity crews. We're the largest association in the metro area. I think Suburban has 19, and St. Paul and Minneapolis, I think, have 10 each, plus or minus. So that's 105 officials at the varsity level, and another 45 to 50 officials that are working primarily or working non-varsity level, and they serve as our subs as they gain experience when a member of a varsity crew can't work a game, because that does happen on occasion. So our role as an association is to develop I'll use the word pool, a group of officials that we can provide to the schools at the varsity and non-varsity level. So you guys signed up with us through the website or references from friends and family. And again, I appreciate it greatly. Our role then is to train you, provide a mentor. So each of you will be assigned a mentor. It's probably mid to late August. And that mentor's responsibility is hopefully can work a game or two with you during the season. Doesn't always work out, but there's somebody for you to contact and talk to as you have questions, concerns as the season goes on. I'm always available. I make myself available to all of our non-varsity officials. But again, I'm scheduling all year long or all season long. So that's why we do the mentorship. You can build a one-to-one relationship with them. We encourage you to also, term we use is shadow. And that is, we'll say, Gavin, I'll pick you. Let's say you're on, I'll use Bill Smith. That's not a name of one of our referees, but let's say Bill Smith is your mentor and he's the crew chief. We encourage you guys to shadow or attend some of their games during the season as your schedule would allow. Majority of our games are Friday night at 7 o'clock. We'll have some Thursday games. A few schools have games at 6 o'clock, but the vast majority are at 7. We encourage you to go. The crews usually get to their site about an hour and a half before game time. They'll do their final dressing in the parking lot. They usually don't use a locker room. And I'll talk about that in a second. But they'll have a pregame session for about 45 minutes before going out onto the field. And that's for them to mentally get prepared for the game. Talk about different aspects of the game, maybe a strange play from the week before, some plays they've heard about that have happened, and just to help them be prepared and talk about unusual plays that could potentially happen and just kind of get their mind ready for the game. You spend a week at work, Friday's going to be hectic at work. Now it's your time to kind of push that all aside, mentally get ready for the game, and usually go out onto the field about 6:15 no later than 6:30 for a 7 o'clock game. So encourage you guys to, with whoever your mentor is, find out their schedule. And all of our referees, head referees, are more than willing to have people come in and shadow them, follow them, attend their pregame session. And what I urge people to do is stay for the game, go up into the stands, don't be on the sideline, because for a couple of reasons. The schools want to control who's on their sideline, and they're responsible for who's on their sideline. And we don't want you to get in the way of that. Also, don't want you talking to the referees during the game, and that would be the tendency to do that. Say, what happened on that play, and breaking their focus. You'll be able to see things better from up in the stands anyway than standing on the sideline, watching a play that happened on the 20-yard line on the other side of the field. And then during the week, if you have any questions, give that mentor a call, Monday night, Tuesday night, whenever, Sunday night, and say, hey, I was at the game, obviously, and you had a call in the third period on unsportsmanlike conduct. What happened? Defensive pass interference. Why did it get called? Any questions you might have, or penalty enforcement questions. That's just a way for you to build your knowledge, and you can learn a lot by watching a high school crew work a game. And I go out every Friday night and observe one of our crews and give them an evaluation. And it's another way for me to stay in the game and not be on the field. But you can learn a lot by watching the game. And I'll be honest, it's very interesting being up. I usually stand next to the press box to get a better view, and listening to the fans and the parents and the comments they make. I do everything I can not to let them know I'm an official or observing. I'll have a notebook and I'm taking notes, and somebody will say, are you scouting for the next week opponent? And I said, no, just taking notes. And they'll let me know. Someone will say, why are you doing that? I said, I'm just here to observe. I don't want them to know I'm an official, because then I'm going to get too many questions during the game. And I want to focus on watching the game. And I don't want to get into debates with them of why that was a good call or a bad call. So I'll try to be as inconspicuous as I can, even though I got a notebook and taking notes. If the weather's a bit inclement, I'll go into the press box, but those press boxes aren't very big, so they don't need any additional people in there unless it's absolutely necessary. But you'll learn a lot by doing that. You don't have to do every game by any means. Do as many as your schedule will allow and your interest allows, and it's just another way to learn. And you can keep a tie with your mentor. Even in years 2 and 3, he won't officially be your mentor. Keep calling him. If you get into a game the second year, you had some issues, give him a call. All officials are more than willing to help share their knowledge and help people along, because that's what helped them get along and to move up. Somebody helped them, networking, take them under their wing or whatever. And that's how we proceed up the level, if you will. So definitely take advantage of that. Like I say, you'll find out who your mentor is middle of August. And I'll talk about the scheduling process here in a little later. And we also have a website, gopherstateofficials.org. And that might be where you went in and filled out your first information form. On our football page, first of all, that'll tell you everything about Gopher State. We do basketball, boys and girls, we do baseball, softball. Those are our sports. We don't get into any others. We don't schedule anything during the summertime. It's just those 3 seasons, if you will. So if you have interest along those lines, obviously we need more and more officials. Desperately need officials in baseball and softball. But also on our football page, you will find this recording out there probably in another day or two, and have a lot of other training information. There's a Word document out there that is the 3-person mechanics for non-varsity level. So we have 3 people on a game, a head referee who will be an experienced official, and 1 official on each sideline. As you get started, you'll probably have 2 experienced officials with you. And as the season goes on, it might be 2 first-year people, but you'll always have an experienced person there with you to run the game as the referee and to also kind of help address any issues that come up. But there's a mechanics book. We refer to it as mechanics. It's basically positioning, and it'll show you on each type of play, kickoff, running play, pass play, punts. Here's your responsibilities, let's say on the line of scrimmage, what you're looking for. You're looking for penalties, of course, but you're looking for how they're blocking, where you're supposed to be looking. The most excuse me, the most difficult thing you'll have, it's going to be even more difficult than learning the rules, is you're used to watching games, either in person, on TV, combination of both. And when you're there, especially on TV, the only place that camera takes you is where the ball is. Other than a replay, then you might see some other things. But during the course of a play, that camera is following the football. If they weren't following the football, people would be upset. They're trying to watch the game, and the game is where the football is. From a fan's perspective, once you get on the field, you no longer are a fan. You are an administrator of the game. The most difficult thing you'll have to do is to focus yourself to not watch what's happening with the football and where it's going. So if I'll say I'm on a home team sideline and they're running a play to the other side of the field, the tendency is for you to follow that running back. But you've got to watch the players on your side of the field, your side of the center, to make sure they're not doing something stupid like a low block, a push, take a slug. It doesn't happen often, but you got to be looking for the safety type things. You're not going to call a penalty for holding on the other side of the field because you're not going to be able to see it from where you're at. The coach might want you to, but behind you, but that's not our area of focus. I call it areas of responsibility. There's on one of the films that you'll find on our website down at the end is a film that was narrated by a gentleman by the name of Bill Lamagna. He's a former Big Ten official, head refereed several national championship games, one of the top college officials in the country. He's now retired. He narrates a film with the different categories of plays. And most of what he's doing is talking about philosophy. It's about a 2-hour long video. It's worth your time to watch that, kind of learn. And he talks about where you should be looking and the philosophy of the game. What is pass interference? What isn't? And it's a fantastic video. It's a varsity game, so there's more than 3 officials, but you'll get an idea of what you should be looking for in his philosophy of the game. And it's a fantastic video. I've kept it up there for years. As the time went on, he started putting game film out there from states that had 6 and 7 officials, and Minnesota doesn't. We don't have enough officials to do that, and I don't think the schools will want to pay the extra fees. But so its benefit to us started getting away from because of those additional officials on their field. But it's still good for us because you'll see some of those plays anyway, but it's still good for us on philosophy and areas of responsibility. So that's why I've kept it up there. I've gotten permission from him to have it up there because they do sell those videos every year. So our website has got a wealth of information. There's one page up there that talks about differences between high school football and college and pro, primarily on rules and penalty enforcements. The high school league will put a document out too. It's many, many pages. Mine is a 1-page thing. I'll just give you a couple of examples. High school football, defensive pass interference is not an automatic first down. That changed about 5 years ago. We do not have the illegal chuck rule that the pros have on the defensive backs. As long as they're not pushing them in the back, they can keep hand contact in front of them as long as the ball's not in the air. Pro has that deal once 5 yards downfield. These defensive backs are not supposed to be touching them at all. Some crews call it real tight, some don't. We don't have that rule. Defensive holding is not an automatic first down in high school. Those are some examples. We now do have at the high school level, finally, where the quarterback can roll out and dump the pass out of bounds without it being called illegal grounding. That's a new rule from 2 years ago. Prior to that, high school kids could not do that. legally. But so that document in there will talk about some of those. Another example is if the defense jumps offside in high school, we kill the play. College and pro, if they get back before the snap, all's good. High school, you kill that play anytime there's an offside. So some different examples there of what that document is for and beneficial. And there's other documents out there too that will help you. And again, it's on our website on the football page. Just scroll down and you'll see links to different documents. Most of them I put together myself, but not all of them. Next thing I want to talk about is communication. Okay. I want to go back one thing on I failed to meet or mention with our schools. Schools are responsible for paying you for working the game. On our website, I have a page as to what you get paid at all the different schools that we cover and the pay rate for varsity and non-varsity level games. Our non-varsity, we have some 7th and 8th grade games, not a lot, but we have 7th grade through junior varsity all pay the same rate. And I think it's going to be $82 or $84 this year. Don't quote me on that, per game. Varsity game this year in the metro area is $94, and it's going up a little bit in the non outside the metro. But there's a page out there that will tell you that the schools are responsible for paying you. You're an independent contractor. We're a nonprofit. Gopher State is. We don't want to get into an employee relationship with officials, so we will not pay officials. The schools that's our association. Some associations, the association will pay the officials. Obviously, the schools pay the association, but their payment method for their assigner is maybe $4 a game from each official. We don't do that. I get paid by the association. We have dues that I mentioned in my communications to you. That's how we get our funding. I get paid based upon, we have dues from all of our officials. That covers our expenses for our association. We have 3 officers that we pay for running the organization, and we have insurance and some banking fees and things. But primarily, the schools are responsible for paying you. They should give you a voucher at the game. Fill that out, give it to them, and they'll pay every 2 weeks, maybe once a month. I'm going to develop on our website. I've not done this in the past. I'm asking each school to tell me how they're going to handle that process. Some schools are starting to go to electronic vouchers. Most are still paper, and then payment varies. Some will do direct deposit. Some will send you a check. And some have the option of paying through the Arbiter system, and we'll talk about Arbiter a little bit later. But you'll be able to, for the schools that respond to me, and hopefully they all will, and I'll keep after them until they do, you'll be able to look on that page and say, okay, say Michael Albertville. If I'm doing a game up there, they have electronic voucher, and that's what it will say. So don't expect a paper voucher from the coach. You fill that out after the game's over when you get home, and it goes into their system. They'll mail you a check. Maple Grove has a voucher that they'll email to you. You fill it out. They will do it. The Osceola School District, they will do a direct deposit. So it varies by school. We're a contractor in their AP accounts payable system, and each one does it a little bit different. So I will have that developed for everybody. Hopefully all the schools reply. And I'll keep after them until we do. But that's where you pay them. Now, if you don't get paid, your first contact will be to the activities director, ED, activities director, by email. I recommend you do it by email. I'll get a document out on this process. That way you have an audit trail rather than, hey, left a voicemail and who knows if anybody picked it up or not, and you don't know who picked it up. Do it by email. You have an audit trail. I contacted you on these 3 dates. Haven't heard anything. I will get involved then. What I'll do is ask you to forward to me your email string. I'll get involved at that point. If your efforts haven't been successful, we want to make sure you get paid. But we want, basically initially that's on you. Again, we will support you all the way through. Usually it's just a human error somewhere along the line, especially if it was a paper voucher just didn't get turned in. That's why we're pushing the schools to get away from that. But that's where we're at this point in time. Communication. So when you get your assignment, we want you, and again, documentation will come out on this, is notify the school a few days before game time. Hey, I'm coming for your 9th grade game. I'll say Holy Angels High School 9th grade game starting at 4:00 on this field, because most schools play at the high school, some play at the middle school, and that information will be on your assignment. They need to know that officials are coming. That in the fall, activity officers are crazy. They've got soccer officials, boys and girls, football officials, volleyball gets started about halfway through our season. They've got officials. They've got a lot of things that they're running and managing. The last thing they want to worry about is, are the officials coming? Do they know they're supposed to be here? I told them we would do it, but that gives them reassurance. And then also that's their chance to say, oh, we forgot to tell you that game's been moved to 4:30. Occasionally they say, hey, we canceled that game and they forgot to tell us. But 95% of the time it's as stated. But don't just say, hey, I'm coming for your game at 4:00. They may have a soccer game at the same time. They don't know which ones you're talking about. So that's why it's important. And I've got a document on our website as to what that email should contain. Copy your partners on the game. All three of you should do that. That way each of you know your partners are coming. There's a quote. I read a book this past 2 winters ago. It's when I get my reading in the winter months. And it was Dwight Eisenhower, who was just coming out of World War II as the commander of the European theater over there, and he was running for president. And he had 2 terms. He had a quote in his book that he said it wasn't his quote. It's not something he learned it from somebody else, and he couldn't remember who to give the credit to. But this is true in life, home, work, everywhere. He said, the problem with communication is the assumption that it has happened. I'll pick on Lewis. I sent an email to Lewis. I assumed he got it. I don't know if he did or not. Could have aired out. I may have the wrong email address. And that's where if your partner emails you, say, hey, we're working at Osseo next Tuesday, reply back. Got it. See you then. Make sure they know that you know you're coming. Just keep, you don't have to keep going back and forth, but reply to that initial email and say, yeah, I got you. I'll be there. Just like if you're talking in person. Okay, Alyssa, we're working at Holy Angels on Thursday at 4:00. See you then. She's not going to ignore you and turn around and walk away. She said, yeah, got it. I'll see you. That happens in person. We get in the electronic world and we tend not to do that. Acknowledge that you've received it. If an AD sends you an email saying, hey, we've had to change the time to the middle of the game to the middle school, acknowledge back. All you have to do is say confirmed. That way they know you've got it and you're not at the wrong location come game time. Just a little extra effort, part of the professionalism. And once you start doing this, you can now say you're a professional official. Maybe not at the NFL level, as we call them pros, but we're getting paid. So professionalism is part of what we press on our officials. You're representing Gopher State, and we're trying to help you get and put the best foot forward. Arbiter. Okay, when you register with a high school league, there was an application called Arbiter, and that's a nationwide system, probably even into Canada, that the high school league has chosen to use to register officials. They used to have their own homegrown system, but they switched to Arbiter. They pay a fee for that. And that's how officials are registered with the high school league. Gopher State and the other associations in the metro area are also using Arbiter to schedule officials for games. There's a feature in or function in Arbiter for scheduling officials. High school league uses it for scheduling state tournaments. We use it for our regular season and section games. So your username, which is your email address and password, it's the same. All activity in Arbiter is under those username and password. When I assign you to a game, there's a term in the system. When I publish that game, an email will go to each official that's assigned to the game. It'll come into your email. It says it's coming from Arbiter. So check your junk mail in case that Arbiter email goes into junk rather than to your inbox. And says you've been assigned to a game, click this link and there'll be a link to that will launch Arbiter for you. Sign into Arbiter, find out where your game is, and you accept or decline that game. Okay. If you decline it, I get an email back saying, I'll pick on Ryan this time. Ryan said, hey, something came up. I got to work late that day. Have to turn it back. Fine, that happens. Life gets in the way. And then I will know I've got to assign somebody else. So that's kind of the flow through. My goal is to get the first couple of weeks of the season scheduled by the middle of August, and hopefully all 8 weeks by the week of Labor Day, so that you know your whole schedule. You may not know if you can, a particular day in late September is good. I'll urge you to accept it. You can always turn it back. Once you've accepted a game, you can go in and turn it back if something comes up, and it happens. I think I failed to mention it. Foremost is in this whole thing of the officiating world is family. Okay. Job and then officiating. I call it an avocation. Some people call it a hobby. I call it an avocation because I have a positive cash flow. Hobbies cost you money. Most hobbies you don't get any cash back. But that's kind of the whole flow for games. I'll have a document out on this also, that there is a way for you to go into Arbiter and block a date that says I'm not available on October 3rd. Okay, so when I go into the system, try to assign you a game, I go and say, who's available today? Your name won't be there if you block that date. It could be your anniversary. It's one of your kids' school projects. You may know it's something for work. That feature is there for you to tell me I'm not available. And obviously I'm not going to assign. I could override that and still assign you, but I don't. If you've blocked a date and you find out, hey, I am available, you can go back in and undo that. There's a process for that. So you're now available to be assigned to a game. So it's that's all part of the Arbiter system in a nutshell. Some of the online training, you'll be going into Arbiter to complete that. But you'll get that information by the first week in August. So again, I urge you to keep the block dates up to date. So if you go in first part of August, you may not know what is coming up family wise in September to the middle of October. Things will happen. Go in later and block it. And it helps in actually 3 ways. If you didn't block a date and I assign you, okay, I think I've got the game covered. You get the email. I say, oh shoot, I should have blocked that date. I knew I couldn't work that day. Now you've got to do something. So taking your time away that you didn't have to do, comes back to me, block. Now I got to go find another official. So it's basically rework, but it's also harassing you for a game that you could have blocked if you knew you didn't have availability that day. So I urge you to look at anniversary dates, spouse's birthday, kids' activities that you know of, because I know you don't know some of that stuff until the school year starts. You don't know when that first band concert's going to be. And the other one is that really causes havoc for us is, that mid-year teacher-parent conferences. And because a number of our officials are teachers and they've got to be there. So then they have to cancel out and stuff. So just keep that up to date throughout the year and don't just look at it at a one-time day. If I look in the system and it's not blocked, I'm going to assume you're available to assign. And again, that prevents you getting an email. You have to do something and I have to redo something. So it helps me, my efficiency. I'm being selfish here. I try to be as efficient as I can. And, but I know life gets in the way. Season preparation. How to really study for the game, how to study and prepare to be a good official. The rule book that you'll get is things like equipment definitions, passing game, timing, player conduct, penalty enforcement. Those are different chapters. Initially for new officials, and even as you go throughout and continue on, rule number 2, it's not really a rule, but it's rule 2, chapter 2. It's called definitions. And that's where it defines different terms you're going to see in the rest of the rule book. Fumble. What's a fumble? What's a forward pass? How do you find a forward pass? How do you find a backward pass? Those definitions are the foundation as you get into rules and exceptions to the rules. The rule book has, it could be, if it was just a straight rule, it'd be about 15, 20 pages long. It has gotten up to about 75 pages because of all the exceptions to rules. One I mentioned was quarterback's rolling out, gets outside the tackle box, doesn't have a receiver that he can throw to, and he throws it out. He throws it out of bounds. Years back, even at the pro level, that was intentional grounding. That was not allowed. Okay. Now they've made an exception to that rule, to what's a legal pass. There's an exception that says they can do it if this happens. That's where they start. It's like a rule and then bullet points of exceptions. That's a simple example. But you'll see when you get into that rule book, everything's clear cut until they say, except for this, except for this, except for this. And that's where definitions come into play, and then also just studying the rule book. Many people have the thought of, I'll go through the rule book once. I know football. I watch it all the time. I know the game. And they read it once, set it aside, and read it again next year. Continue. I urge you, get the rule book. When you get it, go through it, and then go through it again weekly if you can. Pick a rule, rule 3, rule 4, and each week read a different rule. And that will help you reinforce all this stuff that's getting thrown at you. It's kind of like drinking out of a fire hose when you first get started. You may be a fan of the game, you watch the game, and then now you're on a field with 22 players running into each other. And it's kind of like a rugby scrum, and it's not quite as clear. And there's people say sometimes some of these penalties could be called better from the stands than they are on the field because of positioning or lack of. So continue to study that rule book throughout the year. If you have an unusual play or something you weren't sure on that happened in your game this afternoon, you get home, find it in the rule book. If you can do that, that'd be great. Call your mentor. But some mentors will say, hey, have you looked for it in the rule book yet? And that's their way of helping you find things in the rule book and get more comfortable with that rule book and more knowledgeable. But again, the mentor's there for you on that. All else fails, give me a call. I definitely, you guys are coming in first and second year officials. I devote most of my non-scheduling time to you guys, other than when I'm looking at a varsity game on a Friday night. But I'm there to help you guys get started and to work your way up. Again, utilize your mentor. Abuse him if you want to. Questions after questions, whatever you've got. Again, I urge you to look in the rule book first if you can find it. it's difficult to find things in a rule book, especially if you're not used to it. They finally put in a good index. They used to have a horrible index, and it was worse than if they confused you more than it wasn't lining up. Basically, it's much better now, and it'll help you. That's your Bible, if you will, and again, keep your nose in there. If you're watching a game, now this is kind of how anal I am. Once I became a head referee in college, and continued to work high school, I'd be watching a college, maybe a pro game. But I got away from watching pro games when I got into college because I didn't need 3 sets of rules in my head. But when I would watch a game and there'd be a penalty, say a college game, how would I would think, and how am I enforcing that on a Friday night high school game? Is that a loss of down penalty or not? Is that, where do they mark the penalty off from? How many yards is that penalty? And that helped me prepare and be better prepared for my games on Friday night and Saturday. I urge you, if you're watching games, you probably do, think about that as you're watching pro games or college games during the season. Play comes up, and just quiz yourself. Hey, what's the penalty for that in high school? Or maybe they can do that in high school and they can't do it in college or pro. That'll help you also. Again, I'm anal. I'll admit that. It's just different ways to pick up the game. Continue to look in the rule book. I learned that kind of the hard way after I became a white hat in high school. I would read the book a couple times a year, or 2 or 3 times during the season. And I happened to need to go for a doctor's appointment, and I had basically a procedure there where I was totally awake, but and I said, hey, this is going to take about 45 minutes. So I brought my rule book with me, and it was just kind of weird. And nurse thought it was weird, but so I'm reading the rule book while this procedure is going on, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, I didn't realize that. Because sometimes you'll just kind of gloss over things, and it's by getting in there and repetition and paying attention, you'll develop your own way to study the rule book. My way was to read it rule by rule. And I got when I got into college, I was in the rule book every night, Sunday through Thursday, because I had 2 sets of rules that I needed to worry about: Friday night game, Saturday game, start all over on Sunday. And I would be I made it through both rule books every week. And usually I would start with high school, then do the college. But that was me. That was my method. There are books out there. If you go to the National Federation of High School website, nfhs.org, there's training materials out there also that you can purchase over time and to help you along. But again, that's how that helped me. That was my method. There is you can download the rule book digitally. I use a cell phone, but it's for texting and phone calls. I don't do apps very well, and I prefer not to. You can download the rule book as an app. You can download the 5-person mechanics book from the high school league as an app when you get to that level. Last thing I'll close with, try to get you out of here within the hour, is moving up the ladder. So I'm gonna, dangerous, as I said, I shouldn't. Dwight Eisenhower said I should never assume anything. I'm going to assume you at some point you would like to work varsity football. If you don't want to and you want to stay at lower level, that's great too. We need people doing that as well. I tell people they always go, how long is it going to take? And of course, the stock answer is it depends. But I'd say 3 to 5 years. With it, just like the rule book, there's exceptions to that. One is timing. We have 105 varsity officials last year, same number this year. I had to replace 19 this year. And that's a big number for me. That's my simple math says that's almost 19%, the biggest I've ever had. And this is my 5th year doing that. It was even bigger than the pandemic year. But it's various reasons: retirements, officials watching their kids play varsity football for the last 2 years, a couple of health and injury issues, moved out of town. So there are opportunities to move up. experience is the key. Get as many reps as you can. Get in as many games as you can without jeopardizing family and work. I'm going to try to get everybody at least 2 games a week. The one problem with football is versus the other sports is at any given level, 9th grade, 10th, JV, varsity, they can only play 1 game a week. Basketball can play 2 or 3. Hockey's 2 or 3. Baseball, softball is 2 or 3. Varsity football is limited by guidelines because of the contact nature and that of only 1 game per week. So it's 1 week I might have 40 lower level games. Next week I might only have 33. The other week I might have 40, 44. It just depends on how it varies for those levels for the high school. Some high schools will note they'll have on your schedule. You'll probably see some games that are referenced 9A and 9B level. Each game is a game in the system. So let's say Osceola's playing Maple Grove, 9th grade. Both of those teams starting out, say they're going to have 2 9th grade teams, 9A and 9B. They will play a doubleheader. 9A game will play usually first, then the 9B game. You would see that as 2 different events to be accepted, or game assignments. As the year goes on, one of those schools says, we had too many kids get hurt. Kids are dropping off. We don't have a 9B team anymore, but they'll still have the 9A. Or they may think they're going to have a 10th grade team and they've had too many injuries or people dropping off. They may cancel their 10th grade season. We're back to having 10th grade games. Pandemic year, we didn't have any. The year after, we had a few. Last year, we had more, and we're back to more and more 10th grade games because their numbers at the schools are getting back up. So the schedules can change, but the more games you can work, the more repetitions, the more experience will help you get better at the game. Working with different people is part of the networking advantage. And I always talk to our officials after the season's over with our newer people. Hey, how'd they do? What do you think? I'm not looking to say, hey, are they varsity ready? But you think they have an aptitude for this? Are they having fun? And they'll give me some feedback. It's not the gospel. If you want to continue to work, you're going to work. But it just gives me a feel for how people are progressing over the years. And like this year, I had 9 people that were not on varsity crews last year that are on varsity crew this year. They got promoted, if you will. They were subs last year. Filling those 19 spots, I had varsity officials move in from other associations. A couple of officials came back that didn't work last year, but there are 9 officials working on a varsity crew full-time for the first time this year. So that's unusually large, but that's kind of the carrot out there for you guys to work towards it. If you want, let me know if you say, hey, what can I do to get better? I really love this. I want to keep going. That's great. That's what we're hoping for, but we're not going to drop somebody who says, I don't want to work varsity games, because we need all of our levels covered, and they enjoy it immensely. So that's kind of my spiel orientation, if you will, for kind of what you've signed up for. Hopefully I didn't scare anybody off. It's a good gig. I'll admit it's not for everybody. It just isn't, but the nationwide, they've done surveys, and if an official lasts up to 3 to 5 years, they'll do it for a long time. Again, family gets in the way, they start having kids, various good reasons for not officiating in the future, but it's and you may find you want to do other sports. Like say we have basketball, baseball, softball. We're always looking for more sports there. The high school league is adding boys volleyball as a varsity sport, probably for the 24-25 school year. They'll need officials for that. It looks like they're going to play in the spring. That's not official yet or final. I hope that's the case, because if they start playing in the fall, I'm going to lose officials, I think. But again, I get selfish at times. One last thing on the federation or the high school league. high school league registration is on a school year basis. So football is the first, the beginning out of the chute with soccer and tennis. We don't have officials for tennis, but adapted soccer. So you will need to register every school year. The high school league will send out a notice. Now that they've got your name and email address, you'll get a notice in the middle of May. Registration is opening for the next school year. This year, as new officials, they reduced the registration fee to $15, I believe, or was it 30? Is it 30 or 15?
I think it was 30.
30?
Yeah.
Okay. Next, because the full registration fee is 60. Next year, I think it's 45, and then the third year, it's 60. If you work a second sport, that's only $15 charge if you've already registered for one in the same school year. So I still register for football. I do adapted floor hockey in the winter. I register for that. It's $15 for me, 60 for football because it's the first sport in. So again, it's not $60 out of your pocket every sport. Again, I encourage you guys to consider those. Also, equipment wise, uniform. Hopefully you guys have all looked into that and started getting that. There can be backlogs with that. General Sports is the best retail outlet in the Twin Cities. They're no longer at 50th and France. They're next to Braemar Ice Arena, Highway 169 and Bryn Road. They always had a hockey shop there. Now everything is there. He is in stock. The guy that does the officiating equipment stuff is a former Gopher State official who has retired from officiating, but good guy, Sean Velick, and he'll take care of you as best you can. There in my emails that I've sent out, there's links to other online providers. If you have any questions on that, don't hesitate to send me an email. Best route is email and stuff like that, because that way I can, if you call me, I'll forget it. Like I said, I'm getting older, and that way I have an audit trail to follow up on. But encourage you to get your equipment. There's a notice we went out. Hopefully you got it. If not, let me know. There's an on-field training session Tuesday of next week and the following Tuesday, August 1st and 8th, on a field just north of the high school, Maple Grove High School, not the varsity field. That's across the street. It's on the field that's in the wintertime, it's domed for you that might live out in the northwest part of the metro area. It's domed in the wintertime. We will be on that field for a 1-hour demonstration, if you will, showing you stance, how to move, what movements we're looking for, basic things like how to use your whistle, how to use the beanbag. And again, I mentioned the term that was given to me by an official after she started 3-4 years ago. She said it was like drinking out of a fire hose. It all come, and she was a fan of the game. She had 2 kids that played at Grace High School, and they encouraged her to get into it when they got done because she had an interest. She's still working for her. She's on a varsity crew. But she told me if that first year it was drinking from a fire hose. And it's right. And we try to slow down the volume of the fire hose. It's going to be that way. But again, utilize your contacts, your mentor, utilize me, anybody else that there's an official, utilize them. And we'll be good to go. We have those 2 training sessions. You only need to go to one. Same topics are going to be covered at each one. Come back a second time if you want. We have a preseason meeting on August 20th at the Brooklyn Park Community Center. That's been in a couple of communications. There'll be another one out there. Starts this promptly at 6 o'clock. And it'll be some training involved, film review. We have a distinguished keynote speaker who is a former member of Gopher State, now a football referee in the NFL, has been for 9 or 10 years. And he's come back to talk to us a couple of times, and he will be talking that night as well. He was on my junior college crew when I first got into the college ball. His trajectory went up. Mine went up to the Division II level, and he went all the way up to the NFL. So great guy, great official. Taught him everything he knows. But No, that's not true, but we give each other a bad time on that. But he will be there to speak to us unless he gets pulled into something with the NFL. But right now he says his schedule's open. And so I encourage you guys to be there that night as well. If you do make it, I encourage you to do that. I'll be hanging around afterwards. Come up and see me. Introduce yourself. As I get older, my recognition, face and name recognitions aren't always the best. And so just say, hey, I'm Ryan Brager, Alyssa Brian Jeffers. It's Jeffries, right?
Yes, it's Jeffries.
Okay.
Yeah.
I may say Jeffers because he plays for the catcher for the Twins. So I may call you Jeffers a few times. So I apologize. I'll get that apology out ahead of time. But just come up and introduce yourself. And I will be out. My goal is to get out and watch not varsity level games. It just kind of depends on how hectic the rescheduling process is during the season. But I want to see how our people are doing and also kind of monitor their progress as they move up and desire to move up. There's one thing in the chat. I'm trying to find it here. Okay, rule books. They should be out by the first week in August. The high school league purchases those from the federation, and they take off of the registration deadline was June 30th. But as first year officials, there's no delay or penalty for getting in late, but they take those registration numbers and determine how many books they need to order, and they get shipped up from, I think it's Kansas City. I think that's where the home office is, maybe Indianapolis now, but those will be shipped out with other materials for you either late next week or the first week in August. The online sessions are going to be available August 7th is what they're telling us. Again, you log into Arbiter to get into those with your username and password. And there's this area in there called, name escapes me now, Central Hub. And that's where a lot of the training information is. The test is there that you can print out ahead of time and do the test. And then when you get online to do it, you won't have to be trying to find it. And it won't be the first time you see it. So it's not out there yet, but it will be in first week of August. You can print that test out. It's an open book test when we get to it online. And you can take all the time you need to do that. Let's see. Any other questions for the good of the cause right now?
Yeah, I had a quick question.
Yes.
So that that $60 fee to register on Gopher Officials, that's different from the $60 fee that would have been paid to register through Arbiter with the
yes. So good question. So the registration fee with the high school league via Arbiter, I think for first year officials it was $30. Next year it'll be $45 and then up to $60. That's to register with the high school league. They do a background check and then they provide the online training and then other training. It's part of, to be honest with you, they're part of their revenue stream because they don't get any direct money from the state. The $65 for Gopher that's dues on an annual basis for football. That helps us pay our expenses. I get paid by the association. I don't take $3 a game away from officials. You'll get whatever's on our website. I think it's $82 this year for lower level games, maybe $84. That comes to you from the high school. From the high schools, you get that full dollar amount. Some associations will take $3 or $4 out of that per official to pay their assigner. We do that with dues. Okay, and part of that too is the additional training that we're providing. All associations have dues of one form or another to pay their expenses. We have 3 officers, a president, treasurer, and secretary. They get paid a little bit. We have insurance that we purchase. We have a website that we host that is an expense there, and also other miscellaneous administrative type expenses, supplies, and so forth. So the dues, and I guess the kind of unfortunate side of that, or the confusing side, is the dollar amounts are almost the same. And the dues this year are the same as they were last year. They're subject to change. Basketball dues are higher, and baseball, softball dues are higher than football. Football, we have an 8-week season. We have a limited number of games we can work. Basketball and baseball, softball, there's more games for officials to work and more games for our signers that do those games have to assign. They make more money than I do for assigning, because it's all kind of based on volume, if you will. And so that's where that is. Good question. That's where those fees go. And again, you'll have the startup cost, unfortunately, with your uniform. That uniform will be good for you, as the years go on. As I started doing college and high school at the same time, I bought a second set of shoes so that they would last longer. And the last thing I wanted to do, to be honest with you, if I got a game on Friday night, it was raining, I didn't want to put wet shoes on Saturday afternoon. So yeah, the games will be played in the rain. The only thing that'll stop us will be lightning, or unless the playing conditions are too poor. More and more of our metro schools are getting turf, which says they can play just about anything. Lightning will be the key thing that will postpone a game. There's guidelines in the rule book on that. If we do have visible lightning, we need to stop the game, suspend the game for 30 minutes minimum. And let's say we're 10 minutes into that 30 and there's lightning again, the clock starts over again at 30 minutes. They don't want people out in the field, which is a dangerous place to be, with lightning going on. I'll give you one example from my high school days. I started doing this in Omaha, Nebraska, my senior year in college, got registered, and then I moved to Mason City, Iowa, and I worked there for 4 years. And probably my second year there, I was a head referee on a game, high varsity game, and right at halftime, the skies opened up. And we didn't have cell phones to check weather. The only thing you had was the local TV station with the National Weather Service, and we probably never listened to it anyway. So we had no idea what weather was coming in. It's dark out, and it's just thunderstorm of all thunderstorms, if you will. And it didn't let up. We got all the way through. Halftime, still going on. Grass field, getting in poor condition. And so I finally went up to the coaches. I said, we're going to have to suspend the game. And he said, really? I said, yeah, we don't know when this lightning is going to end. At that point, it had been over half an hour, and it was still lightning. And I said, you got fans in metal bleachers, and you have a chain crew with metal poles in their hand. Do you want to do that? And they said, no. And I said, okay. So we finished the game the next day at 11 o'clock. That's the only one of my games that's ever happened. I had one that's been delayed for a half hour to 45 minutes, but I've never had one suspended and continued the next day. And that's over 40 years worth of high school level stuff. So it's rare to have that happen, to carry over. But it's a little bit more often that you will get it where you have to delay a game for a little while, but usually they flow through pretty quick. And today now, with our cell phones and site administrators, they know what the weather's doing. And they can get, you can get the radar and say, hey, this thing's clearing out in 20 minutes. And as long as lightning doesn't continue, we can get going after our 30-minute suspension. And again, it's all about safety. Back to that first object in the rule book: safety, sportsmanship, and fair play. Safety is there too, and it's fans, us. You don't want to be out on that field. One other anecdote: I used to do house league baseball back in the 80s and 90s and some traveling league stuff. It's on Maple Grove, a few blocks from my house. Lightning starts showing up. I canceled our baseball game. And across the field and across the street was a fire department. There was a soccer game going on, and they kept playing. And I'm getting in my car, getting ready to leave, and fire department came over and told them to get off the field and go home. So and that was 25 years ago or 30. So more and more aware of what weather can do to us, more and more aware of what the weather is doing. And keep aware of, if you have rain all day and you got a 4 o'clock game, by letting the schools know you're coming, they've got your contact information. If they're canceling, they'll usually let you know before they let me know. If they call you and tell you or text you and say, hey, we're canceling, let me know, because they may not tell me, so I can update my records. If I hear from them, I will let you know. But those are usually last minute decisions, somewhat last minute. But just because it's raining out, assume the game is on until you hear differently. Because again, they will play in the rain. Soccer plays in the rain. Lacrosse, baseball, softball to a degree. So they will play as long as we don't have lightning, because it's a short season. It's 8 weeks long. They're done. Lower level games, they want to get those in for their kids, and they don't like to give up games. But they won't take those extra measures. Once a game starts, the referees can say, we are suspending the game. It's in the referee's hand. Until the game starts, it's under the auspices of the school, the home team. Once that game starts, usually the referee will confer with the coaches and the AD, if the AD is there, and say, hey, this is getting a little dangerous. If you think it's dangerous and they want to keep playing, that's what that head referee is there with you for, to say, hey, we're suspending. High school league will support us all the way to the hilt. You may get some flack. You shouldn't. But sometimes the adults get too wrapped up in wanting to get that game in. Schools are much better at saying, no, we're not doing this. But they will play in poor field conditions as long as it's not lightning. So it's don't let the rain scare you off or keep you from checking it. And the other thing you do is you can check in with a school. I will have on our website also the contact information for each school, the activity director, the admin assistant, with phone numbers. The admin assistant is somebody you should also include in your email communication. Admin assistants run the office for the ADs. ADs are involved in a lot of stuff during the school year, during the day. Some of those activity directors are also in charge of transportation now, which is a thankless job. That school buses to and from school, to and from events. Some activity directors are now responsible for that. And that's just another layer of challenges that they have even before the pandemic, but after the pandemic. There are some schools, not for football, but there are some schools that, say basketball as an example, baseball, softball, volleyball, the varsity players are on their own to get to their away games. They don't have enough buses to take them. Not every school is that way, but I do know of some metro schools that have gone to that. They just don't have the busing capacity to do that. Football's got all of the gear, large numbers, hockey the same way, but it's on a school by school basis. So ADs are, I wouldn't want to be on their side of the desk. I don't want to be a principal, don't want to be a superintendent of schools, but an AD's job is right there with challenges, parent pressures. There's been some examples here in the metro area this year with ADs that resigned because of too much pressure from the school, from the parents and involvement. And that's at the varsity level. That doesn't get directed to us by parents much. At the varsity level, it's more towards, you'll hear the boos. One thing on that, if somebody comes up to you that's not a coach or a player, and they want to tell you, maybe you're walking out at halftime, you're spending a little bit of time on halftime, usually out on the field. After the game's over, you're on your way back to your car. Don't talk to them. You don't know what their agenda is. They're usually not happy about something. As you get experience, they may ask you, hey, what's the rule for this? Or what's the penalty for this? You can size them up as you get more experience and say, well, that's no longer a loss of down penalty in high school. It's or an automatic first down at the high school level. But beforehand, don't engage them. Don't want to engage you. Just ignore them. Because the conversation is probably not in their mind, is they're unhappy about something. You'll get some, they'll say, hey, ref, good job out there. Thank you. You can acknowledge that. But if they say, come to you and say, hey, I need to know something, the antenna should go up right away, and you don't need to talk to them. And also the other thing is, like a lot of other things, I apologize. Don't expect dressing facilities at the schools. I even tell our varsity officials, they've got way too much going on after school to wait for the officials to get there to take them to a locker room. They're probably waiting for the visiting team to get there. So what I always did, I worked in Bloomington. Most of my games are in the northwest part of the metro. I would dress at work. If you have an office where it's closed door and blinds, do it there. Go into the restroom. I would put everything on except my striped shirt, the pants, shoes, everything else. I didn't want a striped shirt on as I'm driving through traffic because somebody may be pissed at part of my language, upset about a call at their kids game the night before, and you got a striped shirt on, so they're going to take it out on you. I don't need to draw any attention to myself. I get to the game, I put my shirt on, the rest of my gear, and I'm ready to go. Schools just don't have they don't even have a locker room dedicated for you. You'd be sharing a locker room with the cross country team, the volleyball team, maybe the swimming team. They just don't have. They have seasonal locker rooms, and that might be what you're in. But those kids are in there all the time. And again, they don't have people. We had one example of a section game, and our crew said, "Hey, we need a locker room," which I didn't even do it for section games. They got there, and their guy said, "I'll meet you at such and such a place," and he wasn't there. He was on the other side of the school waiting for the visiting team to come in, and they got hung up in traffic. Well, his first priority that night is going to be the visiting team. No doubt about it. It took 20 minutes before he got to that crew. They weren't happy, but it's something they could have done better with by saying, not even asking for it, because too many things out of our control. And this was a case where he's waiting for that visiting team, and that was his number one priority that night. Because if he's over showing you guys your locker room, and visiting team shows up, now they're unhappy because they can't get into the locker room. So, we're third in priority, unfortunately, in that case, home team, visiting team, and then us. But the ADs are fantastic. Coaches are getting better. One thing at the lower level to keep in mind is the coaches that are coaching that are learning to coach also. We're learning to officiate. Their ninth grade coaches, their 10th grade coaches, they're not involved with the varsity very much. They're learning how to coach also. And not that you take abuse from them, but just kind of keep that in mind too, is that we're all out there learning together our own piece of the trade. And but if you have problems with a school, make sure you let me know. I'll need details. You let me know, and I'll go to bat for you with the school. We may agree to disagree, but at least it lets them know there's something we're not happy about, and that we didn't think was handled well. And they don't want that either. And they're judging their coaches. They're trying to move up to the varsity level and maybe a head coach at some point too. So they've got a career path, most of them. Some of them are volunteers. Many of them are at some of the schools, but they have a love for the game. Obviously, they put in a lot more time than we do, and they get one game a week. Players get one game a week, so it's really important to them. It's important to their families. It's their game. They don't have to go to the drudgeries of practice the previous 4 days. It's now game time. Let me play and give them our best, and we'll all be better for it, and have fun. So again, guys, thank you much. Hopefully you can make it to one of the two sessions coming up on the 1st or the 8th, and our preseason meeting. And then so that'll be the extent, if you will, of our training, those sessions. And then obviously with your mentor, and then again, shadow a crew during the season. And if you registered as a varsity official, one of the perks is you can get into regular season games for free. Now, what you'll need to do is on your profile page, after you do your online testing and everything, your picture will be there, and it'll show that you're a registered official for football. Print that out, take it with you, show it to the people at the gate, saying, "Hey, I'm an official, registered official." They may question you because that information is not always well spread through the school, and the people taking money at the gates. But just tell them, "Hey, I'm with just say high school league, show them that picture. I print it out, put it on a piece of paper. Because it's just a small piece of paper, and I put it on there, it has a little bit of structure to it, show it to them. I've never been turned down. But so if you have registered at the varsity level, you can get in for free. It saves you $5 or $7 depending upon the school. And get you so you can be following the game, following your mentor, and just keep on learning. So again, guys, thank you for doing this, for your time tonight, but also getting involved in officiating. And see, I started in intramurals in college, and I never looked back. And it's been a joy for me every year that I worked. And fortunately for me, I finished my last high school game was a Prep Bowl championship game, and 5 days later I had my knee replaced, and I'm no longer working on the field. But that was all part of my final year plan. Hopefully a championship game. I didn't know if I'd have it, but I knew I was done at the end of that year. But that was after 42 years of high school football. So again, thank you. The high school league appreciates it. The schools appreciate it. Sometimes it doesn't always show, I'll admit, but they do appreciate it because they know they need us to pull off these games for their kids to play. So I've taken this over a little longer than I had hoped, but again, thanks for hanging in there. And again, hope to see you in the next couple of weeks. I'll be there at those 2 sessions, and I'll have a separate session for officials like you just getting started. There'll be another session at the other end of the field with our varsity officials, and a 3rd session with those that have been working 5 or 6 years. So, well, my session will be with you guys and the other officials working their 1st and 2nd year. I have no idea how many numbers will show up spread between the 2 nights, but come out if you can. And any good. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good week. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, and this will be posted again out on our website in a couple of days.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You bet. I can figure out how to do this.
After you're done recording, do you mind if I ask you a couple questions that I kind of developed throughout?
Yeah, I'm not seeing. I just was ready to do the end. I hit the end meeting, but obviously we're still on. I'm not sure if it's recorded or not, to be honest with you.
That's okay.
Because it doesn't, down at the bottom, it's not showing that icon anymore. But yeah, go ahead, Gavin.
Yeah, no worries. I'm just kind of curious, what percentage of officials in Gopher State work varsity? If it's like 50-50, or if it's more than 50%, and then kind of going the other direction, how many varsity officials still work C squad games? So kind of where does it overlap?
I don't have a percentage for you, but we have varsity level guys on 9th grade games. I need them. First of all, I don't want to send non-varsity officials to a game. I have some guys that have worked 7-8 years that I'm comfortable being the head referee at that game, so I might not have a varsity official there. We have varsity officials working 9th grade games. They know that they're obviously they're getting paid just like you are. It's a way for them to keep in the game, help people come along like they were helped when they got started. Be honest with you, I don't have that number. I think we've probably, I'm going to say we probably have at least 50 of our 105 work non-varsity games. I was one that couldn't work many because the game started at 4. And I worked in Bloomington, and the games are all up in the northwest part, and I couldn't get out of work in time. I would do there would be a few JV games on a Monday night at 6 o'clock that I could work. So as the years went on, I didn't as a varsity official, just because of my work. And some that are older don't want the wear and tear anymore on their body, to be honest with you, and to save it for Friday night. And we have a few like that. And I was kind of like that even after I retired 3 years. When I retired, I continued to work 4 more seasons of football. My last season of football, I worked very few lower level games because I was working Friday and Saturday, and I was bone on bone for 3 years before that. And then I had the knee replaced. So we have varsity officials working that will help you out. And you'll definitely be on those to begin with. And and as the year goes on, you might see somebody that's not a varsity official but has worked for 8-9 years, and they're comfortable doing that. So I should have that percentage number, but I don't. But I would say at least 40%, 50% do. Maybe not every week, but they will work. And I had another thought there and I lost it, because I need them out there, obviously, to help train you guys, cover the games, keep the game under control. The last thing I need is send three rookies out on a 9th grade game. They're relatively easy to work. Coaches it can be challenging. The parent, I've gone to a 9th grade game, sat in the stands, and I think one in particular, I think there was at least 20 offensive coordinators in the stands, because they weren't happy with any of the plays that were being called. And it might be because they weren't handing off to their son often enough. It was, what are you calling that for? Where's the passing game? All the fans have opinions, and they're out there for their kids, obviously, and it's their first year of high school football. You'll get more parents at a 9th grade game than you will a 10th grade game, because the kids are moving up. The parents might be going to younger siblings games, or they want to make sure they're following them, maybe less interested. There's various reasons for it, but it's the moaning and groaning from the fans towards their own coaches on a 9th grade game are interesting. But we're all John Madden. I'm dating myself now, but I know Madden football's still around. We're all John Madden as we watch pro football, and after he quit coaching and started doing his telestrator and explaining everything to everybody, he was teaching fans how to be a coach, and he was good at it. So that's why that game is named after him. So hopefully I answered most of your question of it. You will definitely have varsity officials with you, and if not, again, a very seasoned non-varsity, somebody that just didn't want to work at varsity but has been around many years. Now we do, I failed to mention, we do have some 7th and 8th grade games that are only 2 officials. But again, we'll have an experienced person there, whether you're both on the sideline, and but that's kind of the way it goes.
Perfect. And then I guess last question.
Yes.
But if I want to, move up, and then I'm willing to put some decent effort into this. So,
Sure.
As far as prep for a C squad game, obviously like varsity, you might seek out some film ahead of time. Is there anything you would recommend doing, or is there anything worth doing? Is it just too hard to find the film? What have you found with that?
I don't have any 9th grade film. I can send you some film of a high school game. We get game film. It goes in.
So I have watched that too.
Yeah. We use Huddle with the school. Most schools use Huddle for filming their games. We ask for game film so we can get it to our varsity crew so they can evaluate their performance. I evaluate it during the winter time and give them feedback. I can get you I can't get you any 9th grade games because we never asked for them, but at least you'll see what's happening in the flow. I can send some of those to you, just so you get an idea of, just pretend you're on the line of scrimmage, and you're not going to see as many passing plays in 9th grade, and it won't be as far downfield, but you'll get an idea of football. But we don't have any 9th grade game film, unfortunately. I don't even know if they film their games, because they pay Huddle so much for data storage. Their fee is a fee for use the system, and then a fee for how many gigs of data they have on the disk drive in Huddle. So we get a game film for high school. It ends at the end of a play, and it starts about 10 seconds before the next play. We don't see anything filmed between the end of the play and 10 seconds before the next play. If we have a penalty, we don't see the enforcement and how they marked it off and all that stuff. They're cutting down their data storage costs. I have no idea what it is. We pay to use Huddle, and our fee is based on how much game film storage we have out there. Usually we keep it for 1 year and delete it off to keep our costs down. And all associations in the metro area share that cost, and but that's Huddle's revenue model. so much per gigabyte, and I have no idea how much it is. So that I'm sure they may do some JV games to a degree so they can see themselves. Ninth grade, I'm not sure how much they do, but we never asked for it. So
Okay, well, that's good to know. Thank you.
yeah, there'll be more communications coming out. We're only about 5-6 weeks away. Instructions on how to look at things in Arbiter for your schedule, and some of the stuff I forgot to mention tonight, obviously. But again, thank you much. The 2 sessions we have had are out on our website. If you weren't able to attend those, they're on our website on the football page. There's one for June 14th, one for July 19th. It's game film narration. I pipe up on a few of them a little bit, but it's training, which you should be looking for. Again, 5-person crew, but you can just vision yourself on the line of scrimmage. What am I looking for? And did you register at the varsity level?
I did, yeah.
Okay, good. You will also get a training tape during the season, one a week. It comes from Arbiter. Jason Nickleby is our coordinator of officials. He narrates it, and it's game film from the previous Prep Bowl tournament games, semifinals and finals. And they pick out a number of plays that they want to emphasize and talk about, usually about mechanics and positioning, where you're looking, a little bit about the rules. And it's another training tool that he sends out every week. And then you can just click on it. They're usually 20 minutes. I don't think he's had any over 20 minutes. And they're out there for the whole year, so you can go back over them. And what I tell our officials is, these are the things, topics, and situations that are important to the high school league. That's why they brought them out and pointed them out to us. Some are, and most of them are positive. Some are negative, in that, hey, we missed a call here. Who should have been seeing that? Most of them are, hey, they did this right. You can learn as much about watching what you did right as well as what you did wrong. And that's why in my game film, I reinforced what I feel they did on a positive note. So they say, hey, I got to keep doing it that way, because that's the way they want to see it done. Maybe I got it right by accident, but it's just, and coaches do the same thing. They'll reinforce what they did right. Obviously, they zero in on what went wrong, but there may be kind of a strange situation. Say, that's the way we want to see that done, and it goes to everybody's attention. And game film is the game film we get it's not ESPN game film by any means, and each school shoots it their own way. So most of my comments are about positioning and mechanics, and not on judgment, because we don't have a close enough look. But it is a good training tool, and I'll get you set up in Huddle, and give you an account, and let you know when it's out there. And I will send you, I'll send some games to you. You'll get an email from Huddle saying there's something out there. The username is the email address that you've given me. When first time you go in, you set your own password. You can use whatever you want to use. Obviously, I can't change it. If you say, hey, I forgot my password, you can go into the system and say, forgot password, and they'll help you along the way there. But I'll definitely get you some game film. We probably get game film for about 70 games a year. I'd like to get more, but some schools have gone away from Huddle and gone to a competitor's product. We haven't sought that out because it's not that many schools. It'd be another license to purchase and so forth. We can get out of Huddle what we need, and it's just all part of the deal. So again, I thank you for your interest. And like I said, work comes first. You got to interrupt there a couple of times from work, and I understand that. So I take that information sheet you filled in as far as the days available. And I will get you. You're down south, right?
I am. Yeah, I'm in Savage.
Okay, good. So I will get you games in, like Holy Angels, Benilde are pretty, geographically close to each other. St. Louis Park, Providence Academy's in Plymouth, straight up 169. Just a little bit west of 169. Armstrong High School is not very far. They're in New Hope. Holy Families in Loretto. I think you might be able to cut over there. They only have a ninth
Out
grade
west works
level.
really well.
Yeah, Holy Family only has a ninth grade lower level. They don't have a JV program. They don't have the numbers. So there's only 4 games there, but I'd probably be able to get you into some of those. Mound and Delano are off of 494 and Highway 12 and Highway 7 area. So if it's too far away, just let me know. And obviously I'll try not to abuse that. Our Saturday games are just JV games only at the pretty much, and they're all at the north is up 694 area by me in Maple Grove, Osseo and that. So ultimately when we get you a year or two experience, we can get you into Saturday games at the J League. Well, Armstrong has some JV games. So when you're ready for that, we can get you in there too on a Saturday, if you're available on Saturdays. And none of the ninth grade teams play on Saturday. They get theirs in during the week. And
Okay.
So there is a no, that I lost my thought. Sorry about that. But I definitely, because I know your interest and you're eager, I'll definitely get you as many games as I can. I already know who your mentor is going to be. Excellent official, does college football. I'll get you two connected in. And
I really appreciate it.
yeah, it's not everybody is going to come in with the same amount of enthusiasm. I know that. And some people kind of come in timid, and I don't blame them. It's, you don't know what you're getting into to a degree, and you hear some horror stories. But 90% of it is all good. Minnesota is good. We'll have some ejections during the game. Kids will get heated and throw a punch. Not very often. The coaches have gotten a lot better, and because the high school leagues are the high school league. If we're doing what we're supposed to do, they will support us to the hilt. And if we're doing something we shouldn't have done, that's different. But if we're doing what we're going to make judgment errors. Jason Nickleby's on a Big Ten crew, excellent official. He was on my college crew, and he kept going up. And I say I plateaued at the Division II level, and that's as far as I wanted to go anyway. But I have no ideas if he has aspirations for the NFL. I hope he does, because he would make it and be good at it. But that's not for everybody either. But he's a Gopher State official, and he's excellent, and they support us all the way. But it'll also tell us if they feel we missed a call, and maybe on safety related or something like that, and that's good feedback. And sometimes he'll say we might not agree, but he said obviously somebody's got to make the final decision. And for us, it's the ref on the field. For the high school league, if they've got to look at it, they get final say. So again, thank you much. I'll let you get back to work so you don't get in trouble. Yeah. And who do you work for? Foss? Is that it?
I do, yeah.
Okay, this is the swimming schools. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's one up in Maple Grove, not too far from me.
Oh yeah.
Up by Walmart. It's maybe 5 miles northwest of me here. It's up by Walmart, up in that area. So
yeah, I was at that one a few weeks ago.
Oh, were you?
I'm all over the place, unfortunately, but
it's
a way. Well, I'm all over the place. There's some far schools, and I'm kind of all over the place. But
are you? Okay.
Yeah. So,
okay, good. Well, I know you guys have been around for a long time, so you must be doing something right.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about quality over quantity. So just like officiating to a certain extent as you move up. So
good people, and I imagine eager participants.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Gavin. I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. Have a good night. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.